I'm here with Professor Sami Haddadin, future director of the Munich School of Robotics and Machine Intelligence, and we're talking with him about the SAPHARI project. So, could you please describe the SAPHARI project in few sentences?
Well, SAPHARI was about putting the human in the center of the robot development and essentially putting all things together that you need in order to make human-aware robots that are safe, intuitive, and intelligent for interaction. And the overall goal was to achieve this on a multidisciplinary level, from mechatronics over control to planning and perception, and finally the implementation in some real-world scenarios.
So, could you please explain in further detail, so what were the main objectives of SAPHARI?
Well, the SAPHARI project, which was, by the way, coordinated by Professor Alessandro De Luca from University of Rome, had a couple of main objectives in some sense, and I was already mentioning some of them, I guess. So the idea was really to put a holistic view on the whole problem of physical human-robot interaction, which was back then a rather new field in the sense that only some basics were developed in previous European projects, such as FRIENDS, for example, which was a very similar consortium, by the way. The idea was really to further enhance not only the embodiment of this physical interaction, so to drive mechatronics and control towards certain kind of flexible interaction control, but also to get the connection between the reactive action generation level, so local planning, local reaction, reflexes, and control, plus the motion planning in human-aware spaces. And I think this was the first time that this has been treated on such a unified and kind of synergistic level.
You mentioned safe human-robot interaction, and safe human-robot interaction is the key for sharing collaborative workspaces with robots. So, which results did SAPHARI contribute to achieving this goal?
Well, I mean, I think SAPHARI was contributing all kinds of results, obviously. From maybe one of the most basic ones was a so-called handbook of injury in robotics. The idea was essentially to capture the inherent safety properties of robots when unforeseen collisions with humans might occur, and how can we then, from this basic understanding on a biomechanics level, infer how to design absolutely safe systems, how do we control absolutely safe system, how do we plan absolutely safe system. And I think this is kind of the basis on which everything nurtured, and I guess on all of these levels we contributed from all different labs. I mean, whether it was DLR back then, Rome, CNRS LAS, or others, like, I mean, application-oriented consortium partners like Airbus and KUKA. It was really the idea that we put together all these stacks in order to achieve safety even on task level, and not only on basic, let's say, mechatronics or theory level.
You mentioned absolute safety, so how much of a prerequisite is that for like having human workers accept robot colleagues?
Well, I mean, acceptance and safety are not necessarily the same things, right? So obviously a very important thing is lightweight design, ultra lightweight design, small and slim robots that really appear to be safe in the way that they collaborate. I mean, reduced inertia is obviously the main aspect about being safe in some sense, so that you can speed up and go to economic level in terms of what the system can achieve. So it's really about, there's levels of abstraction of safety. So the most fundamental is always the mechatronics, the design, right? The mechanics. What are the mechanical properties, the surface properties, curvatures, and so on, and how fast can you move? So a robot should be aware of what safety means. This means to be aware on the design level, right? This means to be aware on the controls level. This means to be aware on a motion level, right? If I hand you over an object, I should, as a robot, definitely understand on a whatever kind of level this means, how I hand a possibly dangerous tool towards a human so that he can take it over during a handover, for example. So this is what I mean by absolute safety, a human-aware and safety-aware system. And obviously there's then the huge field of standards and what this means in terms of implementation, commercialization, and so on and so forth. But I think if you cannot guarantee the safety to the human user, then obviously this is something that no one could want in robotics. It's really that absolute safety was the premise of the project, right? That's what I really meant by putting the human at the center. Then obviously the first premise is to make interaction absolutely safe, right? Approaching Asimov's first law in some sense.
Thank you, that's very fascinating. So I have one question on long-term sustainability. So two spin-off companies have been created out of the SAPHARI project, and one of them was Franca Imica, where you were one of the founders. So can you tell us a bit more on how SAPHARI has influenced the founding of Franca?
Yeah, sure. So I think what SAPHARI was really kind of contributing to the whole idea and spark of creating these companies back then was to to bring this technology to a certain level, right? So we did lots of basic research already, many of the things that we've been doing at DLR, also previous colleagues of mine, and obviously this was a kind of legacy in a very good sense, a history, right? A history of collaborative robots that are capable of physical interaction. And SAPHARI was kind of this wonderful team of excellent researchers that have trust in each other and were basically friends. So we really, this was the previous project, right? So it was really wonderful to work with these people and learn from them and contribute in both ways. And this kind of made it possible to have a spirit in the way, okay, this collaborative robotic space, the idea of creating a robot for everybody, that was kind of my main premise, right? So democratize robotics, that's kind of where I want to go. And then there was a visit in the US, I must admit, so I went to Willow Garage, so Steve Cousins was also a great influence there, who kind of gave me the feedback, okay, what you guys are doing is incredible, so this has to be out there. And then, you know, one step led to the other, and then there was lots of luck and nice coincidence, very big support from all kinds of ways, and this was kind of a stumbling path of then ending up in Franca Amica finally, right?
Very nice. Speaking of appreciation, you and your team have recently won the German President's Award for Innovation in Science and Technology for your work on, I quote, human-centered robotic assistance for a brighter future. So how much of SAPHARI is in the award?
Well, I mean, since SAPHARI is one of the main projects I've also been involved, I think there's a tremendous amount of SAPHARI, if not all the technology, of course, right? So this was so broad and so many things that are still to be commercialized, I guess, in the future. But the spirit is there, the basic ideas are there, lots of the work that we've been done also in basic research at DLR. But I think it's more the concept of where I wanted to go that really was nurtured by SAPHARI. And it's without the SAPHARI project, I don't think it would have been possible. I don't even think I would have thought about it, right?
So that's really great. It really shows how much EU-funded research contributes to like being successful in the future as well. So my final question for you, and this is more like a broader question. If you think about the future of human-robot collaboration, what do you think awaits both the humans and the robots?
Well, I think the main premise, and I also believe that this was one of the main reasons why we actually were honored with this prestigious award. And in particular, I think this is also a great story for robotics in general, because it kind of supports the story of human-centered robotics, right? And really, this idea of putting the human at the center of system development, of robotics, is now mainstream, right? It was kind of the mainstream idea that was created by SAPHARI to a certain extent, in robotics at least. And I really think this is the path that we're going, and this essentially means, on a very, let's say, high level of abstraction, we're creating tools for mankind, right? And I think this is really what robotics is about. You're creating tools for making our lives easier and really create something of value for society, not only for the user, but also for the European industry in terms of new jobs. Franca Amica created a couple of hundred jobs already now. It's a very young company, right? Also in production, so getting production back to Europe is a very big aspect, I believe. So robots being assembled, manufactured in Germany, right? Not in Far East, despite it's the first mass manufactured robots. And this path is now continuing. So we will have robots that can be distributed to SMEs, right? So this big vision of the EU having little assistance, right? Robot assistance that supports small and medium enterprises to become more efficient, to become competitive is one of the big, I think, things that will happen over the last couple of years. But I also believe there's a long-term agenda now coming, or appearing in front of us somehow. And I believe that we are more and more moving also to, let's say, professional service sectors. So healthcare is, I guess, a very big topic where we can have tremendous impact. We see more and more medical applications in surgery. And at the same time, I also think that we are kind of now having a big stake, or we should take a big stake, also as Europe, in the sense in elderly care. So I think our aging society really needs robotics. It's the solution to the problem that we have, right? For example, what we are currently setting up, this is something some of the projects I really want to push forward in Munich when I'm now changing to TUM. It's really having robots that support elderly people to stay at home, right? Not the need of, not pushing them into the need of going to nursing homes, but actually making them able to stay at home with robotic assistance, having their autonomy, and really living their own lives.
Thank you very much for these insights, Professor Haddadin. So, Professor Sami Haddadin, future director of the Munich School of Robotics and Machine Intelligence, and he was talking with us about the SAPHARI project.